Okay, I'm just gonna talk.
Hello, Beth.
Just make sure.
Got somebody on.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. No. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2 from over here. Test.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like to bring to order the June 20th, 2023 board meeting of the Bucks County Intermediate Union. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Here we go. Screen's not working.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Do we know where that pledge came from?
You sure do. That was Ms. Dykan and Mr. Schmaltz, Motional Support Class at Samuel Everett.
Okay. Here I am, I start my finger. So Beth, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Roll call.
Attendant.
Mr. D'Angelo,
Here.
Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Ms. Venus Clemens, Ms. Eilenberg. Here. Mr. Morgan,
Here.
Mr. Cirillo,
Here.
Mr. Waldorf,
Present.
Ms. Krachowiak. Here. Ms. Cannon.
Here.
Ms. Sheehan.
Here.
Ms. Stern.
Here.
Ms. Pauley.
Here.
And Mr. Pettyjohn. Okay, we have a quorum of 11.
Okay, and if my count is right, we have 4 people on the phone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that correct?
It's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Just remind me when we ask for discussion to make sure I don't leave them out. Okay, we did have an executive session to discuss some real estate as well as some safety issues. And we finished that up around 7 o'clock.
And personnel
And personnel issues as well.
Collective bargaining.
and collective bargaining.
And legal.
Collective bargaining and legal, we'll be
We did it all.
talking about that tonight, right? Okay, so we can go to our presentations and mini reports. Our special education mini report.
On behalf of Dr. Graney, I'm proud to introduce Ms. Schmidt. You've heard presentations from Jen before. Jen, the floor is yours. Just make sure you turn that microphone on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this evening, in your packet, you have a mini report on the Bucks IU multi-tier system of support. So I wanted to start with providing just. There's a delay.
Is that on?
Got it? Okay, thank you. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, sorry for the delay. So the Bucks IU has always had an MTSS system in place for academics, and we've also had social emotional learning and behavioral interventions in place for our students. But more recently, we've seen an increase in emotional behavioral needs of our students, which prompted us to establish a committee looking specifically at the MTSS system for behavioral and emotional needs. So that committee was formed with a small work group of school counselors, social workers, psychologists, and behavior analysts, working initially to establish what current supports exist across our programs, and reviewing our comprehensive school counseling plan, as well as the mandates and regulations that were required to provide all of our students, and then looking at areas that we could continue to improve and address varying needs across programs and on an individual basis. So working through that process, and many of you may be familiar with the tiered systems of supports within your districts. So this mirrors that same system for academics, a universal level where all students receive these supports, a more targeted level that may be small group or a little more individualized, and then those very intensive supports. And it's designed so that students can move between those supports depending on their level of need. So looking at those universal or tier 1 supports, we're identifying the school-wide positive behavior supports, areas such as cyberbullying, bullying, digital citizenship, looking at our screening and ongoing assessment to identify where we may be looking at areas for increased, more targeted or intensive supports, and then continuing to monitor those. And then we're also looking at areas where we can emphasize choice for our students develop those connections with community employers, our post-secondary planning following that Act 158 as far as end of career readiness guidelines. And then our counselors do push in and provide Tier 1 lessons to all of our students on a monthly basis as well. All right. So I wanted to provide an overview what some of those handling and prevention lessons look like, and the students who receive them. So again, the bullying and cyberbullying prevention, digital citizenship, community safety, suicide prevention, trauma-informed education awareness for our staff, some of the safe to say, and the substance use. So those are primarily provided by our school counselors in some of those Tier 1 lessons. I gave some little examples of some of our school-wide PBIS. So at Samuel Everett, we do have the dolphin tickets, which is just one example of a school-wide system, as well as some of the earned rewards that students work towards. So they did an escape room, and at the end of the year, they were able to work towards a zoo trip. At the targeted or Tier 2 support level, we're utilizing some of that assessment data and really focusing on more short-term interventions. So those could be small group interventions that might focus on anger management, conflict resolution, recognizing feelings, social skills, grief. So again, some examples with some of our students here, some of that recognizing feelings, resources for resolving conflict, and problem solving. So again, this is an area that we would provide that ongoing assessment and determine whether students have a continued need or a more intensified need, or that they would move back to that Tier 1 level of support. And then our most intensive or Tier 3 supports, we're really looking at those more individualized supports for students, those individualized assessments and interventions that could be looking at consults with a behavior analyst, individual counseling sessions that might be part of an IEP, intensive interagency coordination that would involve more of those community partnerships and parent engagement. And so again, this is an area that as somebody enters this Tier 3 support, we're going to provide that continued monitoring and look to continue that cycle between the tiers based on our student needs. So just wanted to share this as an overview of one of the steps that we're taking to ensure that our programs remain supportive and adjusting to student needs, and hoping that they continue to develop our students to become healthy, and productive citizens. So thank you.
Thank you. Jen, does anyone have any questions? Mr. D'Angelo?
I saw the, when we were at the, visiting, I believe it might have been Lower South, when we saw some of the kids in the classroom, it was up there and they got up and they went and touched like happy, sad. So, and these were, I believe they might have even been like kindergarten kids. So.
They would have been, if it was
Yes.
Lower South, yes, you were just there, they would actually be younger than kindergarten.
Yes, and it was, it's a neat exercise. You know what, it engaged them all. And they were all, participative, and so we're starting it out that young. It's got to have good benefits. So I just want to again thank you for all you do, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Haller, we're going to go next to our programs and services.
Good evening, everyone. In your board packet, you will also see the district support team summary of work focused report for the Program and Services Division for this month. This is a great way to summarize the 2022-2023 school year. And so you'll see that what I did is I tried to take some highlights from each of your districts as we completed the year, wrapped up 22-23. And actually the interesting thing is timing is everything. I've just been in the process of actually having all the meetings for this upcoming school year. So I've met with almost every district. I think I have 2 more left to go. So we're on that with the homeward stretch there and really making sure we have an understanding of what the requests are and the needs are for 23-24. It's a great segue from Jen's presentation about MTSS, because one of the themes that you'll see is that has been a theme of support across the board for many of your districts. And we certainly have similar strategies. That triangle is universal, and it applies not only to our program as a Bucks IU team, but also throughout all of the county and those of you who are implementing. But in addition, you'll see just a variety of different things that we offer depending on district request. And so we're thrilled to have that opportunity each year to understand what those initiatives are that we identify as being supported.
My fault. Please don't.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so.
Good job, Dan.
So as you'll see, I won't go through each district, but you can see that summary of what was provided for this current year. And one of the other highlights that was put into place about 5 years ago now is that this is a joint effort between our Programs and Services Division and our training and consultative staff that work and really are embedded in all of your districts. And so we work together. You know, when I first got here to the IU, it was kind of like they were doing their thing, we were doing our thing in Programs and Services. And by bringing those under a single umbrella of support, it really has allowed us to make sure that any initiative, whether it is with general education or special education programming, that we're all working together for the betterment of your district. So that's just a quick summary, and I'm certainly happy to take any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Holly?
So for Council Rock, I see my students 15 days or whatever. So is this like training the staff, or you go directly to the classrooms to do that?
It depends on the building. It depends on the you know, where the school is in terms of implementation. And in a larger district such as Council Rock, there are many elementary schools, for example. And so some elementary schools are at different stages of implementation. So it's at the initial stages of implementation, there's a lot of training. As we move forward in the years of implementation, it becomes much more personalized and customized. Perhaps a classroom would need some individual direct support. So it really is very much depends on each building and their, you know, really where they are in that implementation journey.
Great. So I see also the comprehensive plan. We're going to vote on that this Thursday. So what was exactly your involvement, the IU involvement with creating that plan?
Sure. So you probably remember Chad Evans from our Programs and Services team. He was the one who helped facilitate our Bucks IU comprehensive plan last year. He is there to support your district along the way. Sometimes he's more of a coach and guide on the side. Sometimes he's asked to come in and to actually facilitate sessions. So I believe in your district's case, it was a lot of kind of support on the side, doing things behind the scenes. And also one of the things that he did is I know he's attended some meetings upon request to help planning for the, you know, finalizing the plan. And in addition, one of the things that when the plan actually gets submitted to Pennsylvania Department of Education, there's something called the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning Portal. And so he is involved in making sure that if there's any questions along the way as the plan is entered, it's not, you think it would be as easy as just uploading a single document and saying, oh, I'm done. But there's actually pieces that have to be completed along the way. And Chad actually served as a way to support that process from start to finish.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? And I will say Chad has been helping Bristol Borough. We just had our first kind of at our meeting, they presented and it's really going along well. And it's just nice to see too that the MTSS, it's being implemented in every school district, right? And so it's working. And I think that's the key takeaway, right? That we're in every district and we're getting results. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, item C, we're going to go to our annual safety and security Act 44 report.
Mr. D'Angelo, in accordance with the law, we were able to do that in executive session, so there is no parallel report.
Okay, so we did that already?
Yep.
Okay. Executive Director's report, Dr.
Well,
Hoffman.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see everybody. It's nice to see and hear the folks that are online as well. In your orange folders, as is my pleasure each month to go through with you, you obviously see hard copies of the mini report that are also available in board docs to help you as you communicate with your boards about the great things that are happening here. Also in your orange folder, it's some of the things I've shared with you electronically as well, but just to help you get a sense of the things that have happened at the IU in the last 30 days. That's one of the things I want to reiterate to you. When I'm sharing these things each month, I'm highlighting things that have happened in the last 30 days, right? And so it's actually quite overwhelming and quite impressive when you think about the things that have occurred, or at least highlighting things that we've communicated or shared in the last 30 days. So you'll see some things from late May from our Caring Community Awards celebration. And you actually see a photo of Mr. D'Angelo sharing some remarks with the group. Ms. Eilenberg was also in attendance. Thank you both for being there. Your e-news, your awesome e-news, which you should be receiving electronically, is also here. You see some great things with employee appreciation. The t-shirts were a hit. Actually, I see Beth here with the t-shirt, rocking the t-shirt. Thank you, Beth, modeling. There we go. Board members should have also received a t-shirt. If you are still in need of one, we are happy to provide it to you. It's the end of the school year. So we've got kids, and we've had kids outside with spring flings and field days all over Bucks County, celebrating and enjoying the beautiful weather that we've had. And there's some great photos of our staff and our students from across Bucks County. And because it's the summertime, the Fab Lab continues to rock and roll. You've been to the Fab Lab. If you haven't, you'd like to go there, just set up a time with me. The Fab Lab doesn't close in the summer, just like the IU doesn't close in the summer. We're getting ready for ESY here for our school age and preschool students, et cetera. The Fab Lab's also gearing up for a lot of summer camps, and there's still time to register for the weeks that haven't sold out. So I would encourage anyone who's looking for some last minute things to do with your kids, even if it's for a week, to look at our Fab Lab summer camp options. We've been really proud of our Monday moments. Every Monday, we've been sharing some great things on social media and via email and other communications channels that highlight our staff, the great people that work for the IU. One, it's important for folks that work for the IU to see what's happening in other segments and programs of the IU. But also, we've learned that these Monday moments are also a great recruiting tool, because people are like, wow, I want to do that. How do I learn more? And you know that I believe that all of you are some of our chief prime recruiters. There's some great things on the third page specific to art and the media design programs. On page 4, you see some great things we're doing to help with Act 48 and Act 45 hours. Those are just sort of the technical terms for professional development that your administrators and your teachers need. Some great things with adaptive technology in the Council Rock School District. Pat, one of our amazing OTs, was awarded a grant from the Education Foundation there to provide adaptive technologies for students that we serve in the Council Rock School District on your behalf. The amazing Employability Expo for young adults beginning in middle school through adulthood, helping them achieve the interview skills that will help them be successful in the workforce. And that can't happen without the amazing work of our team and also our community partners. We talked about the Caring Community Awards, where we celebrated those amazing individuals across Bucks County who don't work for the IU. They don't have one of these lanyards, but they're as much as part of our team as anyone who does, and anyone who is an IU employee. These are the folks that go out of their way to provide support and resources to our students and also to our staff in the form perhaps of a job placement, or perhaps it's a caring adult in a school that goes the extra mile to make sure that our students are included. There's so many examples of folks in our community that have gone above and beyond to support the IU. On the next page, you see a banquet that you're all invited to, and I want to thank Ms. Clemens, Ms. Eilenberg, Ms. Cannon, and Mr. D'Angelo for having a schedule that allowed them to attend the second annual Project Search Banquet at the Bucks Club, where we honored our partners at the county who are so gracious in supporting our young adults that are embedded in those county programs. And Ms. Eilenberg, you work alongside them every day. We actually just hired one of the interns to work in our human resources offices here. Karen, when does he start? He starts next Monday. So we literally hired someone who just spent a year with the county. You'll see some great things with PDE endorsements, which are like add-ons to credentials and certifications. There's some great things about some kids helping each other and supporting each other in the playground, just the power of inclusion and how it benefits everyone. It's Better Hearing and Speech Month, and it has been. And I want to give a shout out to our board member from Central Bucks, Ms. Cannon. She was actually the keynote at the Bucks County Intermediate Unit's Hearing Social recently, where she presented to our students and families who are supported through our hearing program. And Ms. Cannon, it was an amazing speech that you provided, and I know that it was appreciated. So thank you for sharing your story. You'll see some great things about programs that are happening in our early learning programs, as well as you'll see some recognizable faces on the photo halfway down. You'll see myself, of course, and you'll see Cece, our program director for technology, Amber, Kathy. You'll see Dr. Holler, as well as Emily, our assistant CFO. They're the the 4 recent graduates of the Leadership Development Fellowship that all of your districts participate in. They're the 4 cohort members from the Bucks IU. And that was cohort number 6, and Dr. Hollers facilitated all 6 cohorts. And You do an amazing job, Rachel. As I mentioned earlier, we're hiring and we're recruiting. And so board members, please spread the word. We count on you as well as our own staff to help us find individuals that will thrive and succeed with a career at the intermediate unit. Some great stories from Ben Salem at the Valley Elementary School to raise money for autism acceptance that included intermediate unit programs, as well as some great work that comes out of the Programs and Services Division facilitating a student forum for high school students across Bucks County that get together to facilitate a common project. Also not included in this particular month's packet, but you are aware, of course, and you'll see additional promotion. We had our Bucks County Intermediate Unit graduation. I guess it was about a week ago. Thank you to Mr. D'Angelo for being there to speak and to hand the diplomas, and to Ms. Cannon for being there to support the graduates. It was just an amazing night. 29 young adults that received their diplomas, if you will, their graduation certificates from the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. A very proud day. Also, just finally, and to state the complete and total obvious, this is our first live stream meeting. We piloted it last month, as you know. So kudos to our tech department, glitches and all, for handling them with grace, with poise, with professionalism, and for putting this together really on a great budget in a way that makes our meetings accessible to all. So kudos to our technology team for making this happen. I just want to remind the board members that these microphones that we turn green are for the in-house mic so that you can be heard in this room. But just know that even if this microphone is off, the live stream will still hear me because this is the microphone for the live stream. So even if you're muted, the live stream will still pick you up. Okay, so just know that you got two competing sets of microphones. So just be aware of which microphones are live. Okay. Mr. D'Angelo, that concludes my report, sir.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hoffman. I just want to add in about the, so many great things, but that community caring, those awards, it's a great thing. Because you know what? People, you would be just shocked at the different, from business, from teachers, from parents, from all willing to just come here and help in some small way. And you know, when you say thank you, it's the oldest. Again, aside from our employees and our kiddos and our families, we have a great bunch of people in Bucks County that help the IU, and that seems like it's the last thing that pushes us over the top to really achieve the success that we're having. So it's a great event, and I will tell you that our district, when we talked about it, and our district is going to have something similar. Excellent. So it's another great idea that started here, and I hope that every district would maybe find the time to recognize the people in their community. So with that, we'll move on to our procedure for public comment, and I don't believe that we have anyone for public comment in the first round.
Correct.
So in the absence of that, we'll move on to our, let me see, items 4C.
4A.
Oh, we have to do 4A by itself? Okay, you're right. So item 4A is the annual election of officers to the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Board of Directors. Dr. Hoffman, you want to speak to that?
Oh, actually, I can, if I could turn it over to Mr. Cerullo as the member of as the chair of the nominating committee. I believe this was prepared on your behalf and
Yes.
request.
Just read it as written.
Yeah, just turn your microphone on, sir. And, yep.
Just want to make sure.
Yes, sir. 4A.
So the Bucks County IU Board of School Directors Nominating Committee recommends the election of the following officers to the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, Bucks County IU, or Bucks IU, Board of School Directors for the one-year term, July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. For President, Mr. John D'Angelo, Vice President, Mr. Ron Jackson, Secretary Elizabeth Bittenmeister, and Treasurer Allison, I'm going to
Bilalovic.
thank you, I'm sorry. And that's it.
Roll call.
So we need a motion.
I believe that's the motion.
There's a motion, need a second.
We need a second.
Second.
You got a second? We do a roll call.
Yeah, it should discussion.
To say, is there any discussion?
Any discussion? Any questions? I'd like to say, I would like to thank my fellow members for having the faith in me to elect me as president. Thank you. So we're going to do a roll call.
can I say?
Of course.
Yeah.
I also want to thank you for your leadership and your involvement this past year. It was my first actually real full year that I was very impressed with your commitment and your leadership. Everybody in the committee, not only Mr. D'Angelo. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say is, I've been here for almost 4 years, and Mr. D'Angelo and Mr. Jackson do an amazing job representing this board. They take it very seriously, and it's reflective. And same thing with Elizabeth as a great secretary in Allison. I think these are, with all due respect to everybody else, I don't know that there's better people suited for this job with their passion and caring and concern for this organization. So I'm happy to, on the nominating board, put these names forth.
From my perspective, I do want to say that Mr. D'Angelo is the third president I've served under. And probably because he's old and retired, he has the time, God bless him, to attend all of these activities. And he's probably the best advocate for the IU that you'll find, accepting the staff and the administration. So having him as our president, we are truly blessed. So
Thank you. Okay, what are we gonna do, a assent or?
I defer to Rebecca.
I believe you need to do a roll call vote. And if there's no further discussion, then you can call the question.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. D'Angelo,
Aye.
Mr. Jackson,
I
Ms. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan,
Aye.
Mr. Cirillo,
Aye.
Mr. Waldorf,
Aye.
Ms. Krachowiak,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan,
Yes.
Ms. Stern,
Yes.
and Ms. Polly.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
Okay. Now we can go to the consent agenda item. And that would be item 6A through 11C. So I would ask anyone, does anyone have anything particular in 6A through 11C that they would like to pull for discussion? Or has any questions or concerns about?
There are some items, it's a long list and I really don't have any disagreement, but there are maybe a couple of things that I can ask questions or we have a chance to talk about.
Go ahead.
Hold on, let me find my notes.
Mr. D'Angelo, in the meantime, if you need a motion for the 6A through 11C and then a second, and then you can open it up to discussion.
So can we get that motion, 6A through 11C?
Motion.
Ms. Eilenberg.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Roll. Okay, now discuss.
So in the treasurer's report, and also I think there's another section further down. So you talk about the income from the investment. And I think I mentioned that before, that in Council Rock, we used to invest. So this is just like investing the funds. So until you spend them, because you pretty much spend them every year. So it used to be that, they put them in the bank and we get some kind of interest and so on. And then before my time, they switched to like an asset management company or a cash management company. And that has resulted in such higher returns. I think this year, of course, it's not, our budget year is almost done, but we're not done. But we estimate like an income of like $2 million just from these investments, and which is about $1 million more than what we anticipated just because how the market is. So, and I know, Alison, you have talked to our business manager, and I don't know exactly what you're doing, but if you haven't done this kind of, if you haven't hired a firm like that, and we use Cornerstone, it's definitely worth looking into that because you can be getting much more than like an actual return from like a traditional or even non-so-traditional bank account.
I just have a question. That amount that you said that you brought in from interest, was that net or gross of fees? Because you would have to pay the asset management company
No,
to
this,
match the funds.
yeah, but what we pay is nothing, is negligible versus the actual return that we get. And so I think, so the person that started that was a prior board director who was a financial advisor. And so when he insisted doing that, I think right now the board sees the benefits of that action. And it varies, of course, based on the rates and so on. But they use instruments that are pretty clever and risk-free. Very important to be risk-free. So there is a high reward or a higher than average reward with really no risk.
Allison.
So related to that, we're actually working to finalize an RFP for investment consulting services. So we anticipate that will go out in the next few weeks. And then we'll receive responses back from that and review those and determine how to move forward.
Excellent, yeah, thank you. I can give you more information on that.
Okay.
We'll keep the finance committee apprised of the results of the RFP.
Yeah. I guess I'm still going on, okay.
Go ahead.
So I think it's 9P, the Red Cedar demolition project.
That's right.
I think this is coming to our board for vote this Thursday. And there was some discussion in our committee meeting. Some people raised an issue that they were not aware of this in advance and that why did that happen all of a sudden? And I think it would, I know we talked about that in executive session. It was very, I was convinced that it's the right thing to do, but some of these board members, they felt that they needed more information. And I don't know if they reached out to you, Dr. Hoffman, to ask more questions, but maybe for like publicly, can you elaborate a little bit on why this needs to happen now?
Absolutely. And this has been done with the full transparency and disclosure of the 12 owner districts since this project began in the fall. And so everything that we've done on behalf of the owners has been done at the direction of the 12 owners beginning in the fall, which includes soliciting the bid that ultimately your boards are approving now and that the IU will execute once we have the 12 owners. So all 12 school districts have been involved, informed, and a part of the decision-making process and provided us with the direction to move forward with the bid that is in front of the 12 owner districts currently and that the board is considering tonight once we receive all 12. So I can tell you that everything that we've done has been at the direction and with the support of the 12 owners. And this is really an issue of good stewardship of the property, making sure that we address the potential liability that remains if we leave it in place, and essentially acting as good stewards on behalf of the 12 owners. This is being done at the request of the 12 owners. We're essentially asked by the 12 owners to do this type of work, which is why we're leading that charge. So
when you say the 12 owners, you mean the superintendent?
The 12 school districts. So we've provided updates to the superintendents, to the business managers, and of course to the 13 members of this board.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And real quick, I'm sorry, my connection blipped out. What was that? Was that question about the Red Cedar School by
Yes.
any chance? All right. We're gonna pull that one vote separate, right?
No,
It's not up for a vote yet.
not right now, it's not.
It's not on the agenda to vote tonight.
Okay, just, all right.
No, that's not true.
It is on the agenda to vote tonight, and I I believe, Ms. Polly, you were just asking questions. You're not asking for it to be pulled from the consent agenda.
Exactly, yeah. I was just asking just to clarify, because the Council of Board will vote on it this coming Thursday, so I just wanted to have some discussion publicly.
So Mr. Morgan, Ms. Polly was not asking that it be pulled from the consent agenda. Are you asking that it be pulled?
Yes, it has to be a consent agenda.
I'm sorry, Mr. Morgan, I don't know that we're understanding you. Are you?
Yes, and we're talking about the demolition of the buildings, right?
That's correct.
Yes, it has to be a consent agenda. Bristol Township requests a consent agenda.
Mr. Morgan, would you like us to pull it from the consent agenda and vote on it separately?
That's what, I'm sorry, that's what I meant, yes.
Okay, so the motion on the table, I believe, is for all the motions inclusive of Red Cedar, so it would have to be amended, right, Rebecca?
Right, the motion currently on the table is a consent agenda for items 6A through 11C. And now I believe that Mr. Morgan is asking that the motion be amended to be items 6A through 11C, pulling 9P.
Does he wish to make a motion?
So, Mr. Morgan, do you wish to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we'll need a second.
I will second it if that's important to the man.
So seconded by Mr. Jackson. And so now that will be voted on separately. And Ms. Polly, I believe you still had items you had questions on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, so I think 10G is the social media litigation. And is it something that you can discuss publicly about that? Because I know it was an executive session, but I don't know if you can inform the public a little bit about what is going on.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Certainly, no worries. Yes, it was discussed in executive session because it is a legal matter. However, publicly, the board is being asked to approve a recommendation that for a fee agreement with the 3 law firms listed in the agenda, which are Franz Legal Group, Levin Legal Group, and the law firm of Dillon, McCandless, King, Kotler, and Graham. They are involved in a nationwide social media litigation case, and school districts all across the country are joining in. It is a fee agreement. The IU pays nothing. And if an award is made in the event that a settlement occurs, then the IU retains 75% of whatever recovery is attributed to us. And then the 3 law firms jointly split the remaining 25%. It's very similar to the multi-district litigation against Juul for the vaping that several school districts in Bucks County had very successful outcomes with that.
So is the 75%, does it also hold for the school districts or it's only for the IU?
Well, the way multi-district litigation works, the court would determine if there is any liability found on behalf of the parties, the social media companies, then it is split up based upon demographic factors such as number of students, number of buildings, number of school counselors, amount of revenue that's been expended to help students that may have suffered as a result of whatever the harm may be that the court finds. And so based upon that demographic data, it is attributed across the country to each of the municipalities and the school districts that have joined into the litigation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because what I saw was that percent was not like 75-25. The split between like the school district or the IU and 25% for the attorneys or the law firms. It was, what I saw was not clear there would be anything left for the school districts or the IU after the lawyers get whatever their share. But that was communicated. I don't know if that's the case.
So very similar to the Juul litigation. If demographically, there is an overall award made, and the judge then determines the share for each litigant, each district that's in the multi-district litigation. So just for example, and these are just for examples, if the award on behalf of the IU was $100,000, then the IU would walk away with $75,000 and the 3 law firms would collect $25,000.
And Ms. Pauly, to your question, it's not that there's nothing left for the school districts. That 20% is, assume that the settlement is for like $100 million, whatever. And out of all that money, the IU gets $100,000. That means we keep 75 and the attorneys would get 25. But if your school district chooses to enter into this on its own as well, you're going to get a separate $100,000. And the amount you keep out of that is whatever you assign to your attorney. Did you go 75, 25 or 30, 70? That was, so our money is not tied to the school district's money. It's separate.
No, I understand that, and thank you. It was just communicated in a different way. Our solicitor, but maybe they didn't have all the information. Thank you. I'm done with my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
We are on the motion for the amendment now. We are not.
So we've got a motion and we got a second for the amendment, which we're voting for the agenda minus 9P. Is that correct?
That's correct. The motion is for consent agenda, approve items 6A through 11C, excluding 9P, and then we will vote separately on 9P.
That's actually not the motion because we haven't approved it yet. We haven't approved it.
That's true, right.
They're voting on the amendment,
Amendment.
then they'll vote on the amended, and then they'll vote for 9P.
I stand corrected.
Okay, so on the amendment, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone on the phone? Any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain since my school district.
Oh, that's right, because you're not involved. Okay. Cool. That motion carries in the absence of any move. Okay. So now we're going to vote on
The actual motion,
Which is?
Like,
which is item 6A through 11C, excluding 9P.
okay, everybody got that, item 6A to 11C excluding 9P.
I just have a question, for item 9M. Number 2, what is the amount of our, I see the premium of our school board E&L, our coverage. I just want to know what is the amount that we're covered for.
Let me look that up. Let me see if I can go back quickly for you.
Yeah.
The limit on the liability is $1 million. 1 million? On the, yes, on that one. Correct.
1 million on the school board?
Correct.
An annual premium of $92,500?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so ready to vote? Any other questions?
Your second.
Yeah, you had a second.
We have a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Anyone on the phone?
Was that for the demolition of the schools?
No, that was for everything else.
Yeah, you're breaking in and out on me over here. All right, we're good.
That was for everything else. Okay, we're good. Anyone else on the phone? Okay, that motion carries. So now we're going to vote exclusively on item 9P.
So, Mr. D'Angelo, first you need a motion
Right.
to approve item 9B.
Okay, so what I would request is a motion for the demolition of the property at 280 and 302 Red Cedar Drive, Levittown, PA, on behalf of the 12 district owners, which is every district exclusive of Centennial.
So moved.
We got a second? Any questions?
No, hold on.
No, you don't have.
We have a first. You need a second.
Second.
We have a second?
Sorry.
Any questions or concerns?
Mr. Jackson and Ms. Sheehan.
Mr. Morgan, you have any questions or you a comment?
No, well, we're gonna vote no on this. We would like to have a separate bid on pulling the rancher to the side and going after the green buildings if we possibly can down the future. But we're still researching things since it's in our neighborhood. So I'll leave it at that.
Can we get clarification as to how the actions of the one school district affects the demolition bid that has been floated? Does this have to be unanimous?
No, it has to be.
No. Do all 12 districts have to accept the bid in order for the bid to go through?
No.
I don't know the answer to that question. I think that's something that we need to check with our outside legal counsel on.
My solicitor says yes, it does, since we're all on the deed.
Okay, in terms of the motion, you can approve the motion, but in terms of do we get affirmation from all 12 school districts to proceed, that's a different matter. So for example, you have to approve this at your own board meetings. So you can continue to vote on this motion and have each district do whatever they're going to do at their board meetings. And in turn, we'll need to research. And Mr. Morgan, if your solicitor said all 12 owners, I understand you're owners of the property, so there has to be some solution reached. But I would need outside legal guidance to give you a definitive answer.
I would ask, since Mr. Morgan's making the motion, I did second it simply to hear the explanation. And Mr. Morgan, since you have, indicated the intent of your board, and clearly you've spoken to your solicitor, I would say for my district up in Quakertown, and I believe for a lot of the other school districts, although they can speak for themselves, they don't need to be due for them. One of our concerns is liability for dilapidated buildings that exist on a property that has no bearing on us, yet because of the nature of the agreement that was set in stone before any of us were even around, we're liable should anything happen. So the question, one of the reasons that the majority of the districts chose to take this action was for that reason. And I understand perhaps you as the district upon which within which the land exists and the buildings are in existence, you may wish to maintain. To what extent are you willing to absolve us of liability? In other words, is there some kind of an agreement that your solicitor can make that would absolve us from this liability that we suffer from?
That is what we are working on right now. We're doing case studies on all three buildings. We want to use these properties because we've lost some properties due to other businesses. We had some preschools go down. Our board is looking into doing something with that rancher as a co-op opportunity where we can teach our kids some carpentry and stuff like that. We are bouncing it back and forth. That is in our backyard. And right now my board has instructed me to say, stay put. And so is my solicitor and superintendent. So right now we are a no. We are investigating. We understand the liability. I've actually had a tour of all those buildings, and I will just leave it at that. But we want to use that land possibly for educational purposes further down the road. And we think that at least the rancher could be saved for a future purpose. Once again, I'm just one guy with a fancy title.
If that's also the case that if that's also the case that you're investigating ways for your district to use that land and the existing buildings. And again, speaking only for Quakertown, not for the other districts, is there a way you could speak to your solicitor about how Quakertown can be removed from ownership? Similar to however Centennial did it so long ago.
Well, that's our plan, to buy you all out for like $1.
So that's something you're also investigating with your solicitor.
Exactly. We are looking into situations where we can absolve the rest of you of this property and we take ownership of it. Yes. Right now, we just need some time to keep investigating what the possibilities with this property we can do with.
Just so I'm clear, I'm sorry. Just so I'm clear, we will not be contributing money towards the demolition of the two buildings that you want to demolish, correct?
Not right now. We're looking into it. We may further come to the realization, my board, that might be a way to go, but right now they are not ready to vote on the demolition of these properties. No.
Okay,
Ms. Eilenberg.
Ms. Eilenberg.
I'm sorry, I just want one clarification, and maybe my brain's not remembering this correctly. Wasn't there some further issues with that property, not just structural issues with the buildings, but also with the ground, with water, with? Yes.
There's a significant amount of work that'll have to take place, but I would leave it to Bristol Township to do their own analysis, as Mr. Morgan said.
Understood. I thought we had discussed that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Understood.
So I think to set the field here, what you have in front of you is a motion that will allow the intermediate unit to act on behalf of the 12 owners as directed by the 12 owners previous to tonight. At least 11 of the districts, I believe, are moving forward with that plan. It sounds like the 12th district is no longer moving forward with that plan potentially, right? I didn't hear Mr. Morgan commit his board. He's simply saying they're exploring the option of not voting yes at their local level. However, just so you're aware, the bid that the IU was directed to perform at the request of the 12 districts is outlined before you. You have that information. And it is for the raising, if you will, the demolition of all three properties. It's not to be subdivided. And so if Bristol Township comes back and says that they would like to raise two and keep one, we'd have to issue, I believe, Allison, a new bid. And if Bristol Township asks for grace from the other 11 owners to extend the amount of time they need to do an analysis, that might also require a new bid, even if they decide to ultimately demolish it, because these bids have timelines locked in where the pricing is guaranteed. So there's no harm in voting yes tonight. to authorize us to do this in the event that Bristol Township comes back and says, yes, go ahead and knock them down. If they don't come back and say that, and they say instead, we don't want to move forward, then I believe an outside legal counsel will need to come in and mediate between the 12 owners about what to do. Did I state the facts correctly, Rebecca, from your perspective?
Yes, you did.
Mr. Morgan, the way that I explained it, is that what you understand to be the case as well?
Works for me perfectly.
All right, I just want to make sure we're all saying the same thing.
The one question,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm just curious, though, what I need to tell my board on Thursday night about the future of this issue. You know, are we looking at potentially increased costs, you know, above what we've already discussed here and what we've gotten back?
yeah, but that, your point piggybacks on what my question was going to be. No offense, Mr. Morgan, but if your intent is to possibly use that property in the future, and it currently has a certain number of structures and a current situation with other facilities and existing situations, then why should the other 11 districts pay to demolish those buildings now when you don't even know what you're going to do with it?
We've been condemned as well, is my other.
Well, we are researching what we want to do with these properties. And it's in our backyard. It's not in yours. And we're going to stand fast on that. And we want to we have people looking into it. As the rest of your boards, we had a lot of other things to deal with also. This will be, we have a board meeting coming up next week. This is a hot topic that we will discuss. But right now, we are a no.
No, and I understand that.
That's where we stand.
I understand fully your position, and I understand why you're making it. My question to you is, we're trying to move forward with raising the buildings. Well, why should we pay to raise the buildings that you feel so strongly they're in your backyard? You may want to use them. You may want to do something with that property. And I'd love to give you that property back right now. It's all yours. Do what you want with it. But why should I then pay any money if you decide not to do anything with it to demolish those buildings?
Well, we're not voting to raise the building. You might want to keep those buildings. We didn't make this agreement. This agreement, I don't know how old it is. Nobody could even find a stinking lease to get out of it. I mean, the Levitts wrote this lease or agreement. Am I right, Rebecca? And we have no clue who even owns what we can do with these properties.
Well, that's not entirely accurate, Mr. Morgan. I know we're using legal terms. It's not a lease. You actually own it.
Well, you know what I'm searching for, but we don't
I do.
have the deed of the property is, you can't use it for much. It's for educational purposes. It was deemed through the township, correct, from the Levitts.
The way the property deed works, there are restrictions on one of the properties that they have to be used only for educational purposes. And so the 12 owner school districts, that's why it was deeded that way, was to school districts. And it was through the years used for school purposes. I think there was a child care center there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the Bucks IU had an alternative school there that we ran for a while. But it has not been used for those purposes in several years. And as you know, back in, I believe it was 2014, the 12 owner school districts asked the Bucks IU on their behalf to facilitate a sale of the property. And that sale did not go through because of the deed restriction. And the 12 owner school districts then requested that the deed restriction be removed. And legal counsel was hired. It went to the Bucks County Court of Common Pleas, and the deed restriction was ultimately decided. There was no expert witnesses that could be found to testify, and so that deed restriction remains. So it is very difficult to sell that property with that current deed restriction on it.
Correct, and that's why we're going to continue to use it for educational purposes. But we're looking at land that we might possibly be able to use. We just had a huge building closed down where at least one daycare center left. And they thought that we're just researching our possibilities here.
So back to possibilities. If this motion fails tonight, the intermediate unit will not be able to engage with the contractor on your behalf of the 12 if Bristol Township ultimately decides to go forward. If it moves forward tonight and ultimately a different resolution is found and the buildings are not raised based on a consensus of the 12 owners, we don't need to move forward with this agenda, this item.
Even if this motion passes tonight.
It doesn't mean the buildings will be raised, particularly if Bristol Township is indicating that they will not vote at the local level for this. That will create a conundrum where the 12 owners will have to come to some resolution and will likely need to hire outside counsel.
So it almost sounds like there's really no rush to approve it tonight. Not that
Well, if you don't approve it tonight and Bristol Township ultimately agrees that they'd like to have it raised based on an assessment, hypothetically speaking, then we wouldn't be able to move forward without convening you again because of the bid has a certain timeline to it.
Right, but we don't know what their timeline is. I mean, they're looking into it. That could be.
Right, so Bristol Township asked the other 11 owners for a moratorium on moving forward and the other owners agree, or some third-party rules that without the 12th vote, you can't move forward. It's likely we'll have to rebid it. That's correct.
But how long is this, if we approve it and we approve moving forward, then the bid is accepted essentially to raise the thing. So, but that's a standing bid for a certain amount of time. If Bristol Township takes a year,
correct,
we're going to have to rebid it anyway.
That's correct. That's correct. And if Bristol Township takes a year, or any of the owners, let's not just make it about Bristol Township. If any owner decides that they want to delay, you're going to have other considerations related to the maintenance, the upkeep, and ultimately the insurance. Those properties are insured mutually through the 12 school districts. And I believe that we've been informed and we've shared with the superintendents that if the buildings are not raised, the insurance for the structures themselves will not continue. So I urge you as the custodian that time is of the essence, whatever your decision, whatever it is, I don't have a horse in the race, that you come to some conclusion relatively quickly.
I have a question. What was the cost to create that? Do we have to pay to get the bid, or it was?
We contracted with a group called the Schrader Group to facilitate the bid process. And those fees are also being assessed by all 12 school districts. So the board motion that all of you have been asked to consider has your all-in aggregate cost, which is a combination of two costs. One is the demolition, which is through this bid that you're considering tonight, this motion. And then also a previous motion approved by this board to enter into an agreement with Schrader to facilitate the process. Back to your earlier question about when did people know about, this board approved many, many months ago, entering into an agreement with Schrader to facilitate this exact bid process.
No, I understand that, but so if we have to rebid, that means
Correct.
more cost. And
the bid process was, at least for this initial bid, do you remember off the top of your head? I don't want to say the wrong number.
42,145.
42,145 divided by the 12 districts.
Plus an additional 3,775. That's in the motion.
That's what we paid Schrader to facilitate the process to generate this bid.
That's what I remember. So we're going to have to pay for this even if we have to rebid. We have to pay for this anyway. So it's not going to be easy to justify that to my board that we're going to, well, guess what? Now we have to rebid, and then we may have to pay these expenses again. I mean, it's enough that they don't like to pay for the demolition. So, and I don't know what Bristol Township did or whatever district, but they must have known about this for a while. So the last minute when we're ready to vote, it's like, oh, wait a minute, we're thinking about that. I mean, I think it would be better if there was some thought into that before, so they knew that whatever they are doing before this meeting tonight. I mean,
I won't fault them because I think everybody at this table can come up with a dozen examples off the top of their head where we were going in one direction, at the last second we changed our minds and went in a different direction. So I don't fault them for making the decision. You know?
No, but we have a board meeting in 2 days, and this is on the agenda. So it would be good to be clear about the direction we are going before we bring into the whole board. And I understand that we gave the okay to do the, I remember actually that discussion that we had. I mean, it's 12 owners, right? So everybody has equal vote on that. It's not that one person, no matter where the property is, has like a higher vote. So I just, it's not very clear right now. I mean, it's not very clean, and I just not happy about that.
Can I just kind of clarify something? I got Mr. Spillier.
No, you may be doing what I'm.
Well, here's where we're at. Voting tonight to approve this doesn't mean we have to knock it down. Every board will vote. When that vote comes back, and I understand your concerns, Mr. Morgan, and I can tell you from the very beginning, my theory always, my position was always that, you know, even though we're 12 equal owners, that Bristol Township really should, you know, really think hard and long about what wants to happen. My only concern, Mr. Morgan, is I've been over there and I've seen that property, and knowing the legal, and I believe your solicitor is also our solicitor, knowing the legal deed restrictions and looking at that property, ultimately, it's all gonna have to come down. If you're saying that the cheapest thing to do is always gonna be to knock it down. If you're saying, well, you can knock part of it down and use some of it, I would hope that that's a decision that you guys can come to pretty quickly. You know, so you may decide tomorrow night or when you have your meeting. But what I'm saying to you is this: the process that we have in place is certainly going to be the cheapest for everybody. And if you decide that you don't want to get it, knock it down or raise it, well, then that's going to cost everybody more money, including your district. And so, I mean, I see what you're saying. And some other districts say, well, why should I pay the money now? Because ultimately, that place has got to come down. I know a little bit about it, and I've seen it. And there's just no way. I mean, yeah, you can rebuild around it, but it's going to cost twice as much to retrofit. So what I would ask you is that you get your board to kind of get together and really hash it out and try to you know, be pretty certain and give the rest of us ample time. Is that okay with you?
We're gonna talk about it our next meeting on Wednesday.
All right then.
Our
If you say-
operations guy says those buildings can be rehabbed. And so.
And that's a true statement. Let me ask you,
And
can we mention the price of the bid or no?
It's actually in the motion.
Yeah, so the bid is in the motion. So here's what you need to show your operations guy. It's $260-some thousand.
206.
$206,000.
206,100.
So that's the number that you really got to let your operations guy look at again. And I would be shocked if he could do anything with those buildings. That's just a down payment on fixing them up. So those buildings have been stripped of everything.
Except for the asbestos.
Yes, except for the asbestos. So I hear what you're saying. And so what I say to the board tonight is this doesn't put anything in jeopardy. We're still going to have to deal with getting all 12 districts to agree. And if they don't, then we'll have to cross that bridge. But I would urge my fellow members to vote in favor of this to get us in the step where when Bristol Township finally decides in a timely manner, then we can all act. Because that $206,000 is a unbelievable price to and then we can talk about it, about transferring it or doing whatever we can agree with the Bristol Township School District. But I don't see any other way that that's not coming down. And
Can I interject just
Yes.
back to the motion at hand, Allison or Robert, in terms of procurement? Allison, what is the timeline? I know that we asked for each of the 12 owners to provide to us ratifications at the local level by July 14th. I believe we were at least on track for that prior to tonight. I'm curious what our bid requires in order for this to stand.
It's 60 days.
60 days from when it was accepted?
It was opened on May 26th.
Okay, so 60 days from there. So that gives the board a sense of the timelines that ultimately we're operating under. If it requires any of the owners longer than that period of time to make a decision to provide us with written consent at all 12, then we'll need to rebid.
Yeah, and Mr. Morgan, if you look at that motion, so the bid that was received was 206,100. And some of those, even the next closest bids were double.
John, you're beating a dead horse. I get it. I get it. All right, I am one person of 9.
Yeah, okay.
We are not voting for this tonight.
Let's get back on
All
track.
right, so we can go round and round all we
I'm not
want.
trying to go around. I'm just saying, make sure that your
All
other
right.
board members
I
know
will,
that.
and we will be discussing this. It's a topic of controversy, and I'm not even telling you how I feel about this. But we need to discuss it amongst our board members next Wednesday, and then we will have an answer for you that quick.
So,
Because if we move forward to say we want these properties, it's going to cost you $1. If not, then we'll move to knock them down. It's going to be a quick decision.
Break it in.
Okay,
So,
that's
right
it. And
now,
that's all we ask.
Mr. Sherrill wants to comment.
Mr. Sherrill?
Let's get back on.
Yeah, well, we're going to just have to vote on.
Right, I mean, whatever Bristol Township and whatever else we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. So by approving the motion, it makes it easier to expedite, provided everybody else comes to the conclusion within the next few weeks that, you know what, this is the right course of action. If we don't approve it, we just hung ourselves out to dry and we wasted a bit.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we're spending money one way or another. If we don't approve it, the money's gone.
Right.
So if we do approve it, there's a chance that it gets done, provided, Bristol Township or Council Rock or Neshaminy or whoever all comes together by the 14th to be able to execute it within the 60 days of the timeline.
Correct.
So, I mean, I think we kind of got in the weeds. We're kind of litigating our own districts here at the IU, but we're trying to accomplish IU business right now.
And just as a reminder, the IU business is IU business because it was the direction of the 12 owners unanimously to do this work.
So-
This is not the IU's prerogative. This is what the IU is doing at your behalf and at your request.
So,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second
on with the vote.
for item 9B. And I will ask all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Anyone else on the phone? So we got one nay. Any abstentions? We have one abstention from Centennial School District. And that motion carries.
Sorry.
So,
Dr. Hoffman, may I, Mr. D'Angelo?
Sure.
Just from a legal standpoint, and I just want to follow up on Ms. Sheen's question. And her question was, what does this mean when my board considers it? And I think you said your board was considering it on Thursday.
Polly.
As was Ms. Polly's. Understanding that you're not yet sure what one of the 12 owners is going to do, my advice from a legal standpoint would be for you to protect yourselves, approve what you may want to do as an owner in terms of demolishing the buildings. And then if another owner has another plan for you or has an alternative for you, then they can bring that to you. And there can be a discussion among the 12 owners. So that would be my guidance. So at least if something happens that, Mr. Morgan, respectfully, if Bristol Township reaches the conclusion that demolishing the buildings is the best thing to do or reaches some other conclusion, then you are protected under this current bid and it could be awarded if Bristol Township agreed to do that. That would be my recommendation from a legal standpoint.
Thank you.
In the meantime, we can get outside legal guidance as well to share. Thank you.
okay, so that motion does carry, with one nay vote.
And one
I
abstention.
have a quick question. I'm sorry to kind of go backwards, but if Bristol Township decides that they do want to move forward, do we all have to vote on this again since they voted no this time?
Unless it's on the 14th.
I believe what we're looking for now is the consent from each of the 12 owners. And so we would need one from Morrisville if you haven't secured it already. In the event that Bristol Township decides that they want to move forward, they would provide us with that assent. If they decide that they do not want to move forward, they would provide us with that dissent. and then we'd have to convene the owners to decide what to do. In the event that the bid lapses and a decision is not determined before this bid expires after the 60 days, we would then have to reconvene the owners, and you would have to then direct the IU with however the 12 owners want. And that could be hypothetically to secure a new bid. And then you would have to take this back to your respective boards, and the cycle would repeat itself again.
So basically, we have till July 24th, if I do my math correct.
We would like it by the 14th.
Right,
Yeah.
but the bid, we have basically about 10 days after that. Okay.
One
Okay,
more question, I'm sorry.
Sure,
If
go ahead.
if our boards all approve these and Bristol Township does not, and we have to secure, or it's not within the time and we have to secure another bid, can we ask Bristol Township to cover the cost of the new bid solely, since they were the only ones that didn't approve it? I mean, I'm not trying to be petty, but like, you know, Marsville doesn't have a lot of money to just
You
throw
could
around, so I'm just curious.
You can always ask.
Listen, I know my friends on the Bristol Township School Board, they understand that this is a pretty urgent thing, and I had known Mr. Morgan for a long time, and if he says he's going to get us an answer very quickly, I take him at his word, and we'll have to go from there.
Yeah, it's nothing against Mr. Morgan, or Bristol Township. I just am trying to figure out how it works. I appreciate you answering my questions. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and basically what you're saying is if under this bid, you would pay 22,000. If there's a delay and this bid lapses, you could be paying 44,000. Every district could. So we're all in this boat together, and we'll work it out. We've given the IU the ability to go forward, and we'll just wait and see what we hear from every district, not just Bristol Township. Every
Correct.
district has to vote.
Right, all 12 have to take the same action. Some of you already have, some of you have it on your schedules. And so we're essentially waiting for all 12 of you. And
But for point of clarification, if I understand the numbers that have been presented tonight,
yeah,
the actual sunk costs to each district here is approximately $4,000.
That's
because that 200,000 is if demolition goes forward. So if for whatever reason we all pause demolition, then everybody at this table's out $4,000 right now. That's it. I'm not saying that's nothing, but that's the fact about.
That's $4,000.
Again, I'm not saying it's nothing, but let's be realistic. Don't throw $22,000 around.
I understand
And
that.
$4,000 is the number that we're in.
Okay, we're good? Any other questions on that issue? I just wanted to have a question, and on items 11, we have some policies that we're doing for the first reads. And, one of them concerns the live streaming of our meetings. And, many districts are doing it. And I had just a quick discussion with Dr. Hoffman, and about like the retention of the video, and I think to make it clear, so every time we have a meeting now, prior to this, Beth would take notes, right, make comments and minutes, and the following meeting we would approve those minutes, and they were the official record of that meeting, and that will continue to be the case. The problem is now we have a video of that meeting. And although I'm sure Beth carries the basic gist of what was said and what was transacted, that the videos can sometimes show other things that may be the subject of, litigation or questions. So I guess my concern, and again, we're not voting on these policies now. I would just ask that every member kind of consider that, we need, this isn't something I just keep them forever or keep them for a week, because those videos of these meetings could be helpful and they could be hurt, they could end up in some lawyer's hands. And as you can see, like what we do is we video and we stream them and then we post it on YouTube. So no matter how long we decide to retain it, right, YouTube, it will probably be out there forever, unless we do something that violates their policy. So I would just ask, as we're looking over these policies, the first read, And I know Rebecca, you had requested a meeting. Please, everybody look over them and talk to your board, because I would like to know what your board. And I just bring it up because there were some situations in our board where someone tried to claim something. Well, I heard you say something, but the official record is always going to be, once we vote on it, best minutes of that meeting. So that, I just wanted to bring that. Dr. Hoffman as well. Did I get anything wrong there?
I don't think you got anything wrong. I think the question at hand is that as we ratify these policies, the administration is seeking input from the board specific to the retention period for the live stream recording. So it's being live streamed now, so people can watch it live. It's also being recorded simultaneously so that it can be watched on demand at a later date, similar to what your districts do. So the question is, like an email or any other electronic document, how long should the intermediate unit administration responsible for electronic retention keep the videos? Is the answer in perpetuity? It should live on YouTube forever? Or is it after the minutes are approved and the video goes away once the official record is ratified at the following meeting? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? Is it 3 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 50 years? It's really at the discretion of the board. There's no requirement in school law, to my knowledge, that you record or live stream or archive a meeting. It's something that you're doing under your own free will and at the direction given to the board, from the board to the administration. So there's no law that says that recordings of board meetings must be retained for X period of time. There is that law for minutes of meetings that Beth retains, and she's diligent in that. The law is very clear how long you keep the paper minutes. But there is no law or code that says that the electronic recording of the meeting be retained for X. And so that's essentially what we're seeking your input.
Can I ask our IT team then, when you're storing things digitally, do we store things on the cloud typically, or do we store things on the mainframe somewhere?
Yes.
But all the above, correct?
It depends, yeah.
Understood. So you said there's a standard for digital meeting minutes that are the written ones that are transcribed.
Correct. There's a law that the school code says that Beth has to, board secretaries go to training, they have to keep literally a printed copy in a secure room for 99 years or whatever, probably forever. It says forever.
Right. And to be quite honest with you, the IT guys where I work, one of the things they're fond of saying is, well, memory's cheap. I'm not sure how true that is anymore, but I saw the cost of it, like a gigabyte of storage dropped to like a penny or something like that.
I don't believe that the cost of storing videos, particularly if they're hosted by a third party like YouTube, is the issue at hand. And if it was, I believe it would be a good investment. I think it's more about the appetite of the board for how long you'd like to keep it.
My response would be, if we have a requirement for digital, then the video should match that. There's no reason not to. I don't see
different digital files have different retention periods.
Once again, I see no purpose in not having those videos available forever.
So you're advocating for perpetuity? Yeah.
Or I'd say in line with the written ones, in the transcribed ones. I see no difference.
I believe that's in perpetuity, right? Yeah. So again, but others might have a different perspective. And so I appreciate you bringing it up, because ultimately we have to put something in there for the board to consider at a future vote.
Yeah, Dr. Hoffman, you outlined the parameters, right? You have from the day after we approve best minutes from the previous meeting to the end of time. I mean, that's what we could pick. 20 years, 30 years, we could pick the day after to not keep it. But again, so I would not be in favor of that.
You want to add anything?
No, I have nothing to add, only that right now, the first reading of the policy, there is a big blank as to what the retention period is for the archive videos. And so before second reading, we just need to have direction on what you want that period of time to be. And Dr. Hoffman did lay out all those options. We've been trying to get some dates together for policy committee, and now we're into July, but we'll try to find a time for policy committee to meet to give direction to the administration.
Can I ask?
I would just like to say for policy, I believe 800 or 800.1, our email retention is 2 years, correct? That's what I believe.
Yeah.
So for emails, it is
email retention.
2 years. That's correct.
2 years. Okay. So I'm just, with the consideration of that digital, it's in the cloud-based for email, obviously for right to news, things like that. I mean,
Yeah, we would have to sit down and talk about that.
Right, and every district is allowed to set its own email retention policy as well. Some of you might have 7 years, 3 years. Some of you might have 1 year. I'm aware of a district in neighboring county, it's 30 days. At the intermediate unit, to Ms. Cannon's point, it's 3 years. Effective July 1.
I don't know exactly how many years is Councilor on, but it's probably forever because I've watched like really old meetings and I found them very, very helpful. And I don't see why, if the school district keeps this public record for a long time, why is the liability of the IU higher? I mean, people are going to go after the IU if we keep them public. I just don't understand the rationale of not keep them for like a long time.
I don't believe anybody's mentioned at least the administration hasn't suggested that liability is a factor in what you would determine. That's not our perspective. The reason why we're asking you is because it's a board meeting this is a meeting of the board, not of the administration. And so ultimately, this is a policy of the board about a meeting of the board. And so we want to give you the opportunity to determine how long it's archived for. If the administration arbitrarily decided indefinitely and a board member didn't like that and thought it should be only a month or a year or 3 years, I don't believe it's my responsibility. I believe it's the board's discretion because it's a recording of your meeting. So that's why we're putting it in front of you to determine.
Okay, I also want to say that it's not really extremely relevant, but in our case, our board secretary listens to the meeting that at least within the next few days before she creates the minutes. And a lot of times these recordings help her get things correct because they were like recorded not the right way. So it doesn't say we have to keep it forever, but it's definitely good to have the recordings just to make sure you have more accurate, like it's almost like watching like a soccer game and then you're not sure exactly what happened. Then you rewind to, see where, what if the referee's call was correct or not. But I'm in favor of keeping them for a while.
Okay, well, like I said, this is our first reading and we can get all that input and our board secretary does the same thing too. She doesn't get anything, she makes sure she double checked with the video. So I just wanted to bring that up. And if there are no other questions, we can move on to our legislative report. Rebecca?
A copy of the legislative reports, of course, in board docs. It's also in your orange folder.
Did that give you the direction you were seeking? I didn't think.
No, we're going to convene a policy committee.
Okay.
No, I did not hear clear direction, but we'll convene the policy committee and receive direction. Good evening, everyone. A lot is now happening in Harrisburg. So you can see my report. In the interest of time, it's 9 pages long. I'm not going to go through all 9 pages so everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. Let me just give you a high-level overview of what's happening with the budget. Budget season is well underway. We have just 2 weeks to go until the June 30th deadline to pass a state budget. I was on a call this morning with one of the school administrator lobbyists from CASA. She stated that there is still a lot of hope to make that June 30th deadline, but she also heard some of the Senate leadership say, we might not make it by June 30th, but we'll only be a day or two off if we don't. So it seems like June 30th, first part of July, we're still looking at to get a budget. Some interesting things happened with the budget. The House on Monday, June 5th, introduced before the House Appropriations Committee their version of the budget. And what was unusual is typically when the budget bills start moving, you have a budget bill introduced with placeholder numbers from the previous budget. And then we know as negotiations occur, generally behind closed doors, those numbers are updated. When the final budget package is approved, then those numbers are replaced in that placeholder bill. When the House Appropriations Committee on Monday, June 5th, very late in the afternoon, brought forth, approved a bill along party line votes. And they used as placeholder numbers, not last year's budget numbers, but instead they used Governor Shapiro's budget numbers. So they did that, and then they amended those budget numbers to make them even higher. And the House Democratic version of this, because again, it was approved by party lines, added more than 1.4 billion to Governor Shapiro's original budget proposal, including a large increase in K through 12 education. They added 900 million additional to Governor Shapiro's number for basic and special education funding, another 250 million for school building construction, 225 million to restart the Level Up program. And that's the program that provides additional dollars for the state's 104 school districts. That bill was approved by the House Appropriations Committee around 5 p.m. It went to the Senate, to the House floor, and by 7 p.m. it was on its way to the Senate. It got done very quickly. It was highly unusual. Now, what was really interesting about this is when it arrived in the Senate Republicans said, there is no way, this is not even a realistic bill. There is no way that we're going to approve this. So they're still negotiating behind closed doors, but the bill that's out there is this very high $46 billion spend for the Commonwealth. The only other thing I want to add is there was a press conference that was held by the Senate Republican leaders after they got this budget from the House. And surprisingly, they were very opposed to it, of course, but they did say some very complimentary things about Governor Shapiro's original budget request. And they said, you know what, now that we've seen the House version, the governor's proposal looks pretty good to us. So that may be a positive outcome. I don't know. There's more to come. Nothing's been finalized. They're back meeting behind closed doors. The goal was to get something out by June 30th. At the bottom of page 2, I gave you a whole bunch, starting on page 2 to about page 8. I gave you a lot of information about bills that are moving or have moved in either the House or Senate that we likely could see possibly as part of an omnibus school code bill. And I'm not going to go through each of those bills because it's very long. You can go through it. They might make it, they might not make it, but this is what's out there with an education background, so you can take a look at them. They've been approved by at least one committee, and they've either been approved by the full House or the full Senate, or they're pending on the House calendar or the Senate calendar. One interesting bill that I want to bring to your attention is at the bottom of page 4. That is the Public School Facility Improvement Grants. This is called PlanCon with limitations. It's House Bill 1408. It was introduced by Representative Peter Schreier on June 16th, so very recently introduced. It would support new school improvement and construction projects by making grants to schools for improvements and renovations, as long as the entity provided a 25% match for each grant awarded. Also, there's a provision in the bill that would allow PBE to reduce the match if the school is in a financial watch or recovery status. No grant award can be more than $5 million, but there's no limit on the number of grants that a school entity could apply for. However, no school entity could receive more than 25% of the total funds allocated. The grant money is available for only 1 year, with projects having to start after July 1, 2023. This bill was referred to the House Education Committee, and an informational hearing has been scheduled for Wednesday, June 21st. I have heard that this bill is under negotiation with all of these extra reserve dollars to try to get PlanCon funding for some school construction. And so this may be a bill that moves. Over on page 5, I gave you updates from all of the bills that we discussed last meeting, and I just updated them really easily for you in red so you can see where there's been any movement. Finally, just to summarize, at the bottom of page 7, cyber charter reform bill is to be introduced. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because I know that's something that most school board members are interested in. So late last week, Representative Joe Soresi issued a memo to all members of the House inviting them to join him in co-sponsoring a comprehensive cyber charter reform bill. He said he plans to introduce this bill soon. According to the memo, the bill contains a common sense plan that addresses areas of cyber charter school operations and accountability and creates funding changes that will reduce the financial burden on school districts and taxpayers while continuing to maintain school choice. Per the co-sponsorship memo, and if you look over at the top of page 8, you'll see some of the things that this bill does. It's things that we've all heard about in previous charter school reform bills. But again, as part of these budget negotiations, and I can't project whether this is going to be approved or not, but this is out there as part of the deal making that's going on. So some of the things that are in this bill, it would authorize a standard statewide cyber charter school tuition rate set annually by PDE. It would no longer be based on your school district tuition rate. It would implement the same tiered special education funding formula that's used by our public schools for cyber charter special education funding. It would establish transparency and limitations for advertising expenses, event sponsorships, and other related expenses that are not directly related to providing an education to a student. It establishes caps on unassigned fund balances, just like school districts have for cyber charter schools. There is a portion of the bill that requires an independent evaluation of student needs for special education services by intermediate units. We're still working to understand how that may work and what the details are on that. It also requires regular wellness checks for each student who's enrolled in a cyber charter school just to verify their participation. It requires cyber charter school meetings to follow the Sunshine Act, just like school districts do. It requires the same financial and ethical reporting standards of charter school trustees and administrators, very simply like is required for public school board directors. It establishes an audit requirements, conflict of interest provisions, public reporting requirements, and then a clear and efficient standard process for applications for new and or renewing a cyber charter. So this bill's out there. We don't have a bill number yet. This was only a sponsorship memo, but it's getting a lot of conversation. A lot of people are talking about it. Finally, over on page 9, on a federal level, I just wanted to follow up from my report from last month. On Friday, June 2nd, President Biden signed into law the bipartisan budget agreement which suspended the federal debt ceiling. It's called the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023. And very importantly, this act does not impact any of the COVID-19 relief funds that were previously awarded under ESSER, under the EAMS program, under the GEAR program, or under the ARP program. And if you recall, as part of those debt ceiling negotiations, there was a lot of talk that any of the COVID-19 relief dollars that had not yet been spent, they were going to be clawed back. And so there was talk that that was what was going to happen. This bill made it clear that these funds would not be impacted. And in addition to that, the U.S. Department of Education then released a document at the very end of May with more details on what is called the late liquidation process for ESSER 2 funds. ESSER 2 funds were required to be spent by September 30th, 2023. That's the deadline. However, this document will allow an extension of those funds if schools haven't already spent them. And all you have to do is talk to your State Department of Education to understand how to apply for that. Okay, that's it for my reports. Anyone have any questions?
Anyone have a question? Thanks, Rebecca. I would just say for one thing here, if Mr. Morgan, if you're still with us, that there's that public school for those grants for those Plan Con, maybe if you guys have an idea for that Cedar property, you've got a year. It looks like there's money. Maybe you guys could reach out to Representative Tina Davis, and I'm sure she could help you out. So hopefully you guys could maybe explore that too.
Dean and I are very close. We've already been talking, so
Great.
we will look into that.
Listen, I knew it. That's why I brought it up. Thanks a lot.
All right, my man.
Okay, so that being said, we did our executive session, under old business. Does anyone have any old business? I'll say it, Mr. Jackson.
I'm not, I said it earlier today.
Okay, let's go on to our new business, the 2023 PSBA delegate, voting representative. Dr. Hoffman, you want to?
Yeah, we do this every year. The PSBA conference has a pre-session, if you will, where voting delegates are assigned from each of the member school boards that are members of PSBA. So if your school district is a member of PSBA, you'll assign one of your members to go to the conference to vote on the slate of initiatives, as well as any other items that PSBA has before their members. The intermediate unit is also a member of PSBA. And as always, we extend an opportunity for any of you to attend on behalf of the IU. So if you attend, you would be attending in your role as an intermediate unit board member. I believe we've asked previously if someone could serve in 2 seats. Could you go and represent both your district and the intermediate unit or a tech school, for example? And I believe the answer has always been no. So if you go on behalf of the IU, you could obviously voice your opinions from your district, but you would be actually voting as the delegate from this organization. And the IU is always reimbursed or paid for a board member's travel or accommodations to attend. And I believe as recently as the last 2 years or so, they've done this virtually. We've had members attend virtually, and there would be no expense, of course, to you or the organization if you attend that way.
They're actually doing it both ways this year.
Perfect.
You can go in person, but they're also, I think there's a limited number of people who are allowed to go in person.
Interesting. So typically what we've done is we've sought volunteers, and it's sort of like a first come, first serve. If more than one person wants to go, the board can discuss. Usually we don't have a lot of people that want to do this, but I think we've typically had at least one person. So Beth, when do you need to know the name by? Is it something you're seeking tonight, or is it something you need to know by the next meeting? I put you on the spot there, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The deadline to register is,
August 25th.
thank you, August 25th.
So we have a meeting before then. If anybody'd like to volunteer themselves tonight, of course, I think, I can't speak for the board, but I'd assume they would entertain.
Anyone?
I would assume you'd entertain.
I just want to say that typically I would volunteer, but I think I'm committed to attending from my school.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, well, we have.
Hang on.
I was gonna, our local, the Quakertown meeting is on Thursday, and the same motion is up for Quakertown. I know there are people who are very active in PSBA and similar things up at Quakertown. If we got a rep up there who chooses to go, I will contact Beth and submit my name to represent the IU on Thursday or Friday.
That's great. Okay.
Is there any other interest? Okay, so assuming we hear from Mr. Jackson, we'll move forward with Mr. Jackson. Thank you.
Okay, just another new business. I want to take this liberty. So at Bristol High for our graduation, we tried to film it this year because we've been filming our sporting games. And so we had the camera set up, and unfortunately, the camera was a motion detector because they use it for sports. And what happened, there's a train line behind our graduation. So as the train went by, the camera went up and locked. So for the whole ceremony, you didn't see anything. But I really felt bad because I had advertised it, but then I thought, hey, I'm at the IU, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean that there's people all across Bucks County who might have wanted to hear it. So I sat down and said, let me listen to it. And I got to tell you, the young lady who gave, she was the president of the class. So I pulled a short clip, and I'm going to get Dan to play it because I just want y'all to hear what this young lady said. So Dan.
So this is a senior addressing her classmates. And we're going to hear just the first few minutes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Hello, teachers, staff, administration, family, and friends. My name is Sophia Fay, and I am the president of the class of 2023. Welcome to the 140th commencement ceremony at Bristol Junior Senior High School. I'm honored to be speaking in front of you today. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I had no idea what to write in this speech. How do I sum up 4 years at Bristol High and mention everyone who touched my life along the way? So I asked my mom, who some of the class of 2023 know as their first grade teacher, Mrs. Spade. She said, just write it. I'll proofread it when you're done. Like she has with almost every single essay I've written throughout these 4 years. So here's my speech, Mrs. Spade approves. Growing up in Bristol is a blessing that not many appreciate. I've been in the Bristol Borough School District since kindergarten, and I've had the same friends since then, Peyton, Miranda, and Ash. Then along came Molly, Carolyn, Maya, and my best friend Jules. Without all of these friends, high school would have been very different. At the end of 8th grade, I almost didn't attend Bristol High, but I'm so happy I did. Bristol gave me these friends, and I'll be eternally grateful. Another thing I'll be eternally grateful to for Bristol High is the life experiences I've had along the way. Many children go into adult life missing certain key experiences that they need to be accepting and welcoming to others. An amazing attribute to Bristol High School is we have an amazing IU program and special needs classes that teach us every day to be accepting and kind, and that we will carry with us throughout life.
That's
I
good.
want to take a minute
Thank you,
to
Dan.
thank some very special.
Right before she started talking, you could hear the train going by. But what she really did say was, and I did not give her $20 to tell you. But, and I just want to say, every one of your districts has kids that have been really affected in a positive way from the IU. So I just thought that was pretty neat. And, you know, again, all of you guys have someone in your district that feels that way too. So, also under new business, we want to congratulate the Teachers Association. We approved the contract, new contract tonight, and the association officers, they're all here. So we do want to thank you guys for a great contract. Dr. Hoffman, you'd like to say something?
I think you said it all, and it's been a pleasure to, it's always a pleasure to work with our association. I want to thank the board for their support. I want to thank the association. And, you know, we often talk about the relationships being the key to success. It's the relationships that you all have with each other, with the students that you serve, with the school districts that you're working alongside of, and then, of course, with the larger intermediate unit that is the cornerstone of the success of our organization. So thank you, and we appreciate you. To put her on the spot a little bit, Mary Jane LeCaire is the association president. Mary Jane, could you give a little wave? Yeah. Yeah, I believe you're up for public comment. I'm going to beat you to the punch if you don't mind under new business with the board's permission.
Sure.
Not only is Mary Jane the association president, and not only was she obviously, you know, central to negotiations, but more importantly to the day-to-day operations and the maintenance of the relationship that we have. And she's also retiring at the end of this school year. And so tried as I might to rip up her notice of retirement and letter of retirement, she kept resubmitting it, and eventually we had to accept it. And so she is going to be a retiree. So not only has she served countless students in many programs across Bucks County as an exceptional speech language pathologist, she's also served her colleagues as their ambassador and their representative. I see Lauren behind her taking the reins as the president. Thank you, Lauren, for volunteering to do that. And I see the other officers and members here as well. Mary Jane, just as a thank you for your contributions to the association and to the intermediate unit and all that you've done to grow this organization and to keep it as the shining star of education in Pennsylvania, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, we just have a small token of appreciation for it. If you don't mind, I'd like to give that to you on behalf of the board.
You want to go get your picture too? Huh? Go get your picture too.
Thank you.
So much.
Yeah, Mary Jane, we have public comment, and that's our next thing, and you're signed up, so why don't you, take the mic there?
Thank you so much for your lovely flowers, and I want to take this.
Is the mic on, Mary Jane? I'm sorry.
Push button.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your beautiful flowers, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all the members of the board for the opportunity to have served your students for 23 years plus. And I can only say that it has been the most wonderful experience that I can give to you. And I have been in all 12 of the 13 districts that I have worked. I have seen students in every disability category. I have worked with students from kindergarten through to age 21. So I feel like I have seen it all with being a member of the feeding team, and it was just really wonderful. So thank you so much. And I also thank my members of the Education Association. I am proud that I could have such a collaborative relationship with all the administration and all the members that we represent. So again, thank you so much. I'm so happy that I can.
Dr. Alba, I gotta say one thing. She'll be back.
She did say goodbye, and then we said it's not goodbye. She said, that's right, it's not goodbye, right? Yeah.
Okay, so, that's the last of our public comment. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 18th. And, again, hopefully we will have all the information we need as far as the, Red Cedar project, and we can move forward. And if there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Seidenberg, we need a second.
Second.
Mr. Jackson.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Safe travels home.
Yeah.
I forgot to.
Okay.
What I wanted to do, have that other one. that-
Yes,
Okay,
that's in
now,
the
The only
process.
thing is,